The base on the distant planet was silent, too silent. Huge metal walls surrounded the human outpost, and the sky above glowed with strange colors, green and purple mixing like a painting. Only a few humans were around, walking carefully on the dusty ground. Among them was a girl named Alara. She was young, smart, and fearless. Her dark hair was tied back in a tight ponytail, and her bright eyes scanned every corner of the base. She had been trained on Earth for missions that few could imagine, and yet here she was on a foreign planet filled with unknown dangers. Today, the training exercise was supposed to be simple. Humans were testing a new alien device, small, round, and glowing with a soft blue light. Soldiers and scientists stood around, ready to observe. The device looked harmless, but it had a warning. Misuse could trigger an explosion. Alara moved closer, curious. Her hands were steady, her posture calm. "What exactly does it do?" she asked the lead scientist, Dr. Harlan, who was older, with a nervous twitch in his fingers. "It's unpredictable," Dr. Harlan admitted. "We're testing containment fields. It's supposed to be safe, but no one knows exactly what happens if it's thrown." Alara smiled faintly. "I like unpredictable," she said. Her voice was confident, almost teasing, but there was a sharp edge. Everyone knew she was not joking. On the other side of the room, a soldier named Corin watched her. Corin had always underestimated humans, especially Earthborn girls. He smirked and held a small pin, a grenade-like weapon that could scare anyone. Today, he thought he would have some fun. He wanted to see if she was really as brave as everyone said. Alara didn't notice him at first. She was focused on the glowing device in front of her, touching its surface lightly, feeling the vibration of the energy within. Then she heard a click. Corin had pulled the pin. The small metal object flew from his hand, spinning in the air. Time seemed to slow for everyone in the room. Scientists froze, soldiers tensed, and Alara's eyes widened, but not in fear. In shock, the pin landed at her feet, small and dangerous, ticking softly, almost like it had a heartbeat. "Alara!" someone shouted. "Step back!" But she didn't. Her mind raced. She had trained for situations like this. She had faced explosions, ambushes, and traps before. But this was different. The entire base could be destroyed if the pin went off. She looked down at it, then back at Corin. The smirk on his face faltered when he saw her calmness. He expected panic, a scream, something, anything. But Alara's expression was steady, almost curious. Then she smiled. It was not a big smile, just a small, confident curl of the lips. But it was enough. Enough to make Corin doubt himself. Enough to make everyone hold their breath. The tick of the pin grew louder in her ears. She bent down slowly, careful not to make sudden movements. Hands steady, fingers precise, she picked up the pin. Sparks flew lightly from the glowing device as her hand touched it, but she didn't flinch. "Do you really think that scares me?" she whispered to Corin. Her voice was soft, but full of authority. He opened his mouth to reply, but no words came. Alara studied the pin for a moment. It was small, simple, but powerful. She could feel the energy inside, feel its intention. And then she did something no one expected. She threw it back. The pin spun through the air, heading straight for Corin. His eyes went wide in shock. "What?" But before he could react, the device hit a nearby wall, bouncing slightly, activating a hidden mechanism in the training base. Lights flickered, red alarms sounded, and Corin stumbled back. The device's energy expanded in a glowing bubble, trapping him in place without hurting him. He struggled, panic in his eyes. Everyone gasped. Scientists murmured. Soldiers froze. Alara didn't move a muscle. She stood there calm, confident, her smile growing slightly. "This is what happens when you underestimate someone," she said quietly, almost to herself. The base was still tense. No one spoke. Corin tried to reach for the pin, but the energy bubble held him like an invisible cage. Sparks danced around him, harmless but frightening. Alara took a deep breath. She looked around at the others, making sure no one else was in danger. "It's safe now," she said. "But remember, fear is useless against calm and focus." Dr. Harlan wiped sweat from his forehead. "Amazing." She handled it Perfectly, he muttered. Ilara bent down and deactivated the device, her hands moving in precise motions, careful to avoid the energy spikes. When it powered down, the bubble around Corin disappeared. He stumbled to the ground, humiliated and shaken, while everyone else stared at Ilara in awe. "Next time, maybe think twice before trying to scare someone," she said to him, her smile now playful but still filled with warning. Corin gritted his teeth, embarrassed but alive. "You lucky," he muttered, not sure if he was angry or impressed. Ilara didn't answer. She simply turned back to the glowing device, examining again as if nothing had happened. The room slowly returned to normal, but the tension lingered in the air. Later, when the training session ended, soldiers whispered about her. "Did you see that?" one said. "She just handled a grenade like it was a toy." Another shook his head. "I've never seen anyone so fearless. She's not like the rest of us. Not like anyone I've trained with." Ilara walked down the hallway alone, her steps quiet but confident. She thought about the pin, about Corin, and about the strange feeling she had when the energy bubbled around him. Something about this planet, about the devices, felt alive. She had to stay alert. She had to be ready, because this was just the beginning. In the shadows of the base, hidden cameras and sensors watched everything. Someone, or something, was observing her. The alien technology in the base wasn't fully understood, and it had its own secrets. Ilara didn't know it yet, but this simple act of bravery had already caught the attention of forces far stronger than Corin, far stranger than anything humans had faced before. She paused at a window overlooking the planet's surface. The ground was rocky, jagged, and the wind howled with strange, eerie sounds. The sky was alive with flashes of purple lightning, and distant mountains glowed faintly. She knew that surviving here would require more than courage. It would require intelligence, strategy, and the ability to think faster than anyone else. But for now, she allowed herself a small moment of satisfaction. She had survived the pin. She had faced danger calmly and smartly. She had turned a deadly moment into a lesson, not just for Corin, but for everyone watching. Her mind already raced ahead, imagining what could come next. The base was full of unknowns. Alien technology, hidden traps, enemies hiding in plain sight. And somewhere in the distance, beyond the walls of the base, something stirred, a presence watching, calculating, waiting. Ilara clenched her fist slightly. Whatever came next, she would be ready. She had survived the first test, and now the real challenges were only beginning. The first pin had been pulled, but she had thrown it back with a smile. And that small act would echo far beyond the walls of the human base, shaping the battles to come, the enemies to face, and the legend of the fearless human girl who was never afraid. And so, the stage was set. The base was quiet again, but suspense lingered like a shadow. Every eye watched her, every sensor recorded her. And Ilara, walking calmly, knew that nothing would ever scare her again. Not in this world, not in any other. The first turning point had come, but the story was far from over. The base had settled into an uneasy silence after the pin incident. Soldiers whispered in corners, scientists nervously adjusted their equipment, and Corin sat in a quiet room, fuming with a mix of embarrassment and fear. He couldn't believe what had just happened. One simple throw had turned the situation completely around. And it wasn't just luck. Ilara had done it with intention, precision, and confidence. Ilara, meanwhile, walked through the metallic hallways with steady steps. Her mind was sharp, analyzing every detail of the incident. The pin was more than a weapon, it was a test. Whoever designed this technology, or whoever had left it here, had underestimated human intuition and intelligence. And Ilara didn't intend to let that happen again. As she passed the storage room, her eyes caught a glint from a container labeled alien artifacts. Dangerous. Most soldiers avoided it. Rumors said some of the items were volatile, but curiosity was part of her nature. She walked in slowly, observing the artifacts. Some floated slightly above their shelves. Others hummed quietly. One, a small sphere covered in tiny ridges, seemed to react to her presence. She picked it up carefully. The sphere vibrated slightly in her hands, as if acknowledging her touch. "Interesting," she whispered. Her attention, however, was not entirely on the sphere. She remembered the pin and Corin's surprised face. That moment had shown her something important. The enemy, whether human or alien, relied too much on fear, and fear could be turned into advantage. Her thoughts were interrupted by an alert. The base's monitoring system detected movement outside one of the perimeter doors. Illyra's eyes narrowed. She moved quickly but silently toward the source. As she approached, she noticed a shadow slipping along the walls, a figure trying to stay hidden. "Stop!" she called, but her voice was calm, not panicked. The figure froze. It was another trainee, a new recruit from Earth named Mira, who had just arrived. Her eyes widened when she saw Illyra standing confidently in the hallway. I didn't mean to," Mira stammered. Illyra smiled faintly. "Relax. You're new. Just be careful next time." Mira nodded, visibly relieved, and hurried away. Illyra stayed where she was for a moment, thinking. This base was not just a training ground. It was a stage for observing human reactions, testing limits, and watching who could survive under pressure. And now, she had caught the attention of more than just her fellow humans. Back in the main hall, Corin was plotting. He had never been so humiliated, and he refused to forget it. But he also couldn't ignore the truth. Illyra had shown him and everyone else that she was clever, fearless, and unpredictable. That combination was dangerous, especially in a place full of unknown technology and potential enemies. Meanwhile, Illyra returned to the glowing device. She studied its surface, her fingers tracing the patterns. She could feel the energy inside, pulsing like a heartbeat. It was not just a machine, it was alive, in a sense, responding to intelligence and intent. She remembered something from her training. Technology reacts differently when approached with fear versus confidence. She had used confidence before, now she would test it further. Suddenly, the device pulsed stronger. Small sparks flew from its surface, and a faint holographic projection appeared, showing a map of the base with certain areas highlighted in red. Illyra crouched, examining it closely. These areas were labeled high danger, but they weren't marked on any normal training map. Something, or someone, was hiding dangers inside the base. Her mind raced. Was this alien technology designed to trap humans? Or was it a test left by humans themselves? Either way, she had to act carefully. Then she heard a soft click behind her. A door had opened. Illyra spun around, ready. In the doorway stood Corin, holding another pin. His face was tight with anger and determination. "You think you're smart, don't you?" he said. "You think you can just handle danger like it's nothing. Let's see how you do this time." Illyra's eyes narrowed, but she didn't panic. Instead, she tilted her head slightly, as if considering his words. "If your goal is to scare me again," she said softly, "you're going to fail." Before Corin could react, she moved. Fast, precise, almost graceful. She kicked the pin lightly with her boot, sending it sliding across the floor toward him. Corin stumbled back, surprised at her speed and control. Sparks flew as the pin skidded over metal surfaces, activating a small shield that shot up from the floor, an automatic base defense mechanism she had just discovered moments ago. Corin froze as the pin bounced harmlessly inside the shield. Illyra smiled, small but confident, and stepped closer. She picked up the pin from the shield and examined it. "You need to learn something," she said quietly. "Fear doesn't win. Intelligence does." Corin's eyes widened. He wanted to attack, to grab her, but every step he took seemed calculated by her. She moved with anticipation, predicting his reactions before he even thought them. Then she did something daring. She threw the pin, not at him this time, but at a console across the room. The console lit up and alarms blared. Red lights flashed, and the base seemed alive, reacting to her action. But instead of danger, the console activated a trap that contained Corin, locking him in a reinforced cage of energy. He pounded on the walls, shouting, but there was nothing he could do. Illyra stood calmly, watching him struggle. "See? Being aggressive doesn't always work. Thinking does." The other soldiers had stopped to watch. Whispers spread through the hall. "She's amazing," one said. "No one handles the tech like that." Another shook his head. "It's like she can see the future." "How does she do it?" Illyra didn't answer. She turned back to the device and began analyzing it further. Her mind raced with possibilities. This base was dangerous, not because of the enemies she had seen, but because of the unknown dangers she hadn't seen yet. And now, she had learned something crucial. The base responded to her actions, her confidence, and her quick thinking. Suddenly, a small alarm beeped. A new projection appeared on the device, showing movement outside the base. Several dots were approaching, fast, organized, and very different from the usual patrols. Illyra's heart quickened, but not with fear. She smiled slightly. This was her kind of challenge. She grabbed a communicator and called Dr. Harlan. "Prepare the team," she said. "Something is coming, and I want every trap in the base ready." Dr. Harlan's voice was shaky but compliant. "Yes, Illyra, but are you sure?" "I'm sure," she said. "Trust me on this one." As she hung up, Illyra's mind was already calculating. The approaching forces could be aliens, rival humans, or something entirely unknown. But one thing was clear. They underestimated her. And that would be their mistake. Corin, still trapped in the energy cage, glared at her. You think this changes anything?" he shouted. Illyra tilted her head, eyes glinting with challenge. "It changes everything. And soon you'll see why." The room around her hummed with energy. The devices responded to her presence. The base seemed alive, and the approaching threats were getting closer. But she was ready. She had learned, adapted, and turned fear into advantage. And now, the next test had begun. Outside, the distant lights of the approaching forces grew brighter. Shadows moved over the rocky terrain, silent and fast. Illyra crouched slightly, analyzing every movement, every detail. She didn't panic. She didn't hesitate. She prepared for the bold move that would define her and set the stage for everything to come. The stage was set. The players were ready. And Illyra, calm, clever, and fearless, knew that this bold move, her quick thinking, her understanding of technology, and her ability to turn danger into opportunity, would not only save her but change the way everyone in the base saw her. Because now, fear would never control her again. Only intelligence, courage, and bold action would. And the real test was about to begin. The base had never felt so alive. Every corridor, every console, every blinking light seemed to hum with energy, almost as if it were aware of Illyra's presence. She moved carefully, yet confidently, her eyes scanning every corner, every shadow. The previous encounters with Corin and the Pin had taught her something crucial. The base reacted to intelligence, boldness, and courage. And now, she had to use all three to survive the next challenge. Outside the base, the approaching forces had grown closer. Strange vehicles, unlike any humans had built, moved swiftly across the rocky terrain. Their hulls shimmered with a faint, almost liquid-like metallic sheen. Shadows of creatures, tall and thin with elongated limbs, moved alongside them. Illyra crouched behind a console near the main observation deck, watching through the reinforced windows. The tension in the room was thick. Her mind raced. These weren't ordinary intruders. They weren't just after the base. They were here for her. Somehow, word of her skill and bravery had reached them, or perhaps they had been tracking human activity for months, waiting for the right moment. Either way, the stakes had just risen exponentially. Illyra turned back to the glowing device. Its soft blue light pulsed steadily, as if communicating. The map it projected earlier still showed red danger zones scattered throughout the base. But now, new areas were blinking with fast, erratic pulse. Movement. Something alive, something reactive. She took a deep breath and ran her fingers over the console. Small panels slid open, revealing hidden mechanisms and unknown alien technology embedded in the walls. She could feel the energy vibrating in her hands. It was almost sentient, responding to her calm and calculated thoughts. Corin, trapped in the energy cage, was still glaring at her. "This isn't over," he shouted. Illyra ignored him. She had more pressing concerns. The approaching forces were closing in, and if she didn't act now, the base and everyone in it would be in grave danger. She quickly activated a series of defense mechanisms she had discovered during the previous encounter. Laser grids snapped into place. Energy turrets powered up, and walls of force shimmered along the perimeter. But the device warned her these defenses were temporary. Once the intruders adapted, they would find a way through. She needed a plan, one that relied on strategy, intelligence, and an unexpected twist. As she studied the map again, a faint signal caught her attention. A small, hidden chamber beneath the base, not marked on any standard schematics, was pulsing with energy. Something was inside, and it was active. She made a split-second decision. That chamber was the key. Whatever or whoever was inside could be used to her advantage. She moved quickly but silently through the base, avoiding the main hall where Corin was trapped. Her boots made no sound on the metal floor. She reached a hidden hatch and activated the override panel. With a hiss, the hatch slid open, revealing a narrow tunnel illuminated by a strange, bioluminescent glow. Alara took a deep breath and entered. The air inside the tunnel was thick with energy. Her hair stood slightly on end, and she felt a strange warmth running through her body. The tunnel led to a small chamber, where a mysterious alien artifact floated above a pedestal. It was unlike anything she had seen, a crystalline sphere, constantly shifting in color, emitting soft pulses of light and sound. She approached carefully. As her fingers reached toward it, the artifact reacted, spinning slightly and projecting holographic images of the approaching forces. They were analyzing the base, preparing their attack, but unaware of her presence in the hidden chamber. Alara smiled. This was her chance. She could use the artifact to manipulate their attack, to turn their strength against them. But she had to be precise. One wrong move could destroy the base, or worse, alert the intruders to her position. She concentrated, placing her hands lightly on the sphere. Images of a base and the approaching forces merged in her mind. She could feel the energy responding to her thoughts. Slowly, carefully, she sent a signal through the artifact, activating a series of traps embedded in the corridors above. Walls would shift, floors would open, and energy pulses would temporarily disable enemy vehicles. Her heart pounded, but she didn't hesitate. She had faced fear before, and now she turned it into advantage. The artifact hummed in response, almost as if approving her decision. Meanwhile, Corin watched from his cage, rage and fear in his eyes. "What is she doing now?" he muttered. Above him, the base shuddered as the first traps activated. Laser grid shifted. Floors opened, and several of the intruders' vehicles were caught in sudden energy bursts. The alien forces struggled, their movements erratic. They had expected a simple attack, but the base itself had become a weapon, and Alara was controlling it. She moved back through the tunnel, exiting quietly into the main hall. Her presence went unnoticed by the intruders, who were now struggling against the unexpected defenses. Soldiers and scientists watched in awe as the base seemed to fight for her, responding to her intelligence and calm. Alara didn't waste time. She activated more defenses, directing energy pulses toward the enemy's vehicles. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the attackers were forced to retreat temporarily. But she knew this was only the beginning. They would adapt quickly. Then came the twist. As she monitored the holographic projections, she noticed something strange. One of the approaching forces was not following the others. A single vehicle, smaller and faster, moved with precision, heading directly for the hidden chamber she had just left. Alara's mind raced. They had discovered the artifact. If they reached it, the base and her advantage would be lost. She had to act fast. Without hesitation, she activated the chamber's defense protocol. The hatch sealed automatically, locking the artifact inside, but not before projecting a holographic decoy. The decoy showed the artifact still active in the chamber, visible to the intruder sensors. The smaller vehicle slowed, analyzing the hologram. Its pilot, or controlling intelligence, seemed confused. The decoy had worked, but Alara didn't stop there. She used the artifact to manipulate the energy flowing through the base, creating false pathways and traps that led the vehicle into a containment zone. The intruders were caught off guard, and for the first time, they were struggling against her control of the environment. Corin, watching from his cage, could hardly believe what he was seeing. How is she doing all this?" he muttered. "It's like she can control the base itself." Alara didn't answer him. She was focused entirely on the task at hand. The intruders' main force was still advancing, but now they were disorganized, slowed by the traps and false pathways she had created. Her bold move had turned the situation around completely. The artifact pulsed in her hands as she prepared the next phase. She could feel the energy, the potential, the sheer power of the base reacting to her presence. With precise calculations, she sent signals through the base's systems, directing energy pulses, closing traps, and manipulating the environment. The intruders, confident moments ago, were now in chaos. Then, a sound behind her caught her attention. Footsteps, heavy, deliberate, and approaching fast. She spun around, ready for anything. Standing in the doorway was not Corin this time, but a shadowy figure, taller than any human, with glowing eyes and a presence that radiated danger. Illyra's heart didn't race with fear. She had learned to control fear, but she knew instinctively that this was different. This was no ordinary intruder. This was someone, or something, important, someone who had come to test her. The figure stepped forward, and the lights in the hall dimmed slightly as if responding to its presence. The artifact pulsed more strongly, resonating with the energy in the room. Illyra felt a surge of adrenaline, not from fear, but from anticipation. "You've done well," a deep, resonant voice said. "But this is only the beginning." Illyra's eyes narrowed. "Who are you?" she asked calmly. The figure didn't answer immediately. Instead, it observed her, analyzing, calculating. Then, with a sudden motion, it activated a device of its own, sending a pulse of energy through the base. The intruder's forces faltered, but so did some of her traps. The balance of power had shifted. Illyra realized the twist. Someone else was controlling parts of the base, or at least had the ability to manipulate the systems. Her bold move had been successful, but now, the game had changed. The intruders were only part of the threat. The real danger was a shadowy figure, and whatever plan it had in mind. She smiled slightly. Challenges like this were exactly what she thrived on. She had survived the first pin, outsmarted Corin, and turned the intruder's attack into chaos. Now, she faced an unknown opponent, stronger and more cunning than anything before. Her mind raced with strategies. She could use the artifact, manipulate the base, and predict her enemy's moves, but she had to stay calm, precise, and unpredictable. One wrong step, and everything could be lost. The shadowy figure stepped closer, energy crackling around its hands. Illyra didn't flinch. She knew this was a true test. Not just courage, but intelligence, adaptability, and the ability to turn an unexpected twist into an advantage. The base hummed, alive with energy, responding to both her and the intruder. Sparks flew along the walls, alarms blared, and the intruder's forces remained in chaos. Illyra's bold move had given her the advantage, but the unexpected twist had raised the stakes to a level she had never imagined. She clenched her fists, ready. Whatever came next, she would face it with the same calm courage and intelligence that had carried her this far. The real battle was only beginning, and Illyra was ready for it. The twist was set. The enemy underestimated her. The artifact responded, and in the quiet moments between chaos, Illyra knew one thing for certain. Fear would never control her. Only cleverness, boldness, and relentless courage would. The base had never felt so tense. Every corridor, every flashing panel, every distant hum of machinery seemed alive, as if it were aware of the approaching danger. Illyra moved quickly through the halls, her senses heightened. She was no longer just reacting, she was predicting. Every footstep, every shadow, every flicker of light told her something. The shadowy figure from the previous encounter was still out there. The intruders had reorganized, adapting to her traps. But Illyra had learned something crucial. Intelligence had overcome strength, and strategy could overcome fear. The base itself was her ally, but she had to use it wisely. One wrong move, and everything could collapse. Corin, still trapped in the energy cage, glared at her as she passed. "You think this makes you invincible?" he spat. Illyra didn't answer. She didn't need to. Every glance, every movement, every subtle action conveyed her focus. She had bigger threats to manage now than his pride. As she approached the control room, she noticed something unusual. The holographic map of the base was shifting, revealing hidden corridors and previously undetected chambers. The artifact she had discovered earlier seemed to be reacting, pulsing softly as if guiding her toward the most strategic positions. She followed its subtle signals, moving with precision through narrow passageways and hidden tunnels. Outside, the intruders were becoming more organized. Their vehicles moved with coordination, their tactics improving. But Alara had already anticipated this. She had studied their patterns, their weaknesses, and most importantly, their overconfidence. Humans were underestimated, and that was her advantage. She reached a small observation deck overlooking the main courtyard. From here, she could see both the intruder's approach and the inner workings of the base. The artifact's energy resonated with the base's systems, amplifying her control. She could manipulate doors, floors, walls, and even the automated defense systems with precision. Every action she took forced the intruders to react, making them predictable. Alara's mind raced. She realized the key wasn't just to defend the base. It was to turn the intruders' strength against them. She would use the environment, the base's systems, and the artifact in ways they could never anticipate. She activated a series of hidden energy conduits beneath the floor. The conduits pulsed with light, creating invisible barriers and traps. Intruders stepping into the wrong zone were lifted slightly, immobilized for a few seconds, enough to disrupt their formation. Others were redirected down corridors that led them straight into containment zones. Each movement was calculated, precise, and devastatingly effective. Corin watched in disbelief. How is she controlling all this? He muttered. He could see the intruders being trapped, delayed, and disoriented, and he realized that Alara wasn't just clever. She was extraordinary. Alara didn't have time to gloat. She noticed a new threat emerging. The shadowy figure had infiltrated deeper into the base. Its energy signature was unlike the intruders. It was intelligent, reactive, and deadly. It seemed to anticipate her moves, countering some of her traps with ease. She adjusted quickly, sending pulses through the artifact to manipulate multiple systems simultaneously. Doors slammed shut in the figure's path. Walls shifted, and energy pulses created temporary shields. The figure was forced to retreat momentarily, but it was clear that it was analyzing her strategies, learning, and adapting faster than any ordinary intruder could. Alara realized something critical. This wasn't just a test of courage or speed. It was a battle of wits. She needed to stay unpredictable, to keep the figure guessing, and to exploit its reliance on logic. Her eyes scanned the holographic map again. She spotted a pattern. The figure relied on direct approaches, preferring speed and force over subtlety. She could use that against it with careful timing. She manipulated a series of traps to create a false path. It appeared to lead to the artifact, but in reality, it directed the figure into a containment chamber designed for alien-sized intruders. The figure took the bait. Energy walls rose around it, encasing it in a shimmering cage. Sparks flew. Alarms blared, and the intruders in the courtyard faltered, confused by the sudden disappearance of their leader. Alara allowed herself a brief smile. The human advantage wasn't just technology. It was strategy, intelligence, and the ability to predict, adapt, and act decisively under pressure. The intruders were powerful, but they were predictable. Humans, when smart and brave, could turn even the most dangerous situations to their favor. Corin, still trapped, couldn't believe what he was seeing. She's using the base itself as a weapon, he said, awe and fear mixing in his voice. Alara ignored him. She focused on the intruders. With their leader contained, their organization faltered. Vehicles collided, formations broke, and confusion spread. She activated more traps, directing energy pulses to slow their advance. The base responded to her touch, amplifying her control, and the intruders found themselves fighting not just humans, but the very environment around them. In the control room, she monitored every movement, every pulse, every reaction. She adjusted systems with precision, creating barriers, redirecting intruders, and predicting their next steps. It was a dance of intelligence, each move calculated to exploit the weaknesses of her opponents. The artifact pulsed in response, its energy harmonized with her own focus. She could feel the connection growing stronger, as if it recognized her as the rightful controller. Every system in the base was responding to her commands. Every trap, every energy field, every door moving in perfect synchronization. Outside, the intruders were in chaos. Their formations collapsed, their vehicles stalled, and some were trapped entirely by the shifting floors and walls. They had underestimated humans, and now they were paying the price. Ilara's advantage was clear. She had turned fear into strategy, chaos into opportunity, and power into intelligence. The intruders were strong but predictable, and she, with courage and cleverness, had become stronger than any of them had imagined. She paused for a moment, observing the chaos. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and energy fields shimmered in the dim light. Corin's eyes followed her, filled with disbelief. The shadowy figure remained contained, but it pulsed with energy, clearly analyzing her actions, learning, and waiting for the next opportunity. Ilara's mind raced. She knew the figure wasn't finished. It was intelligent, adaptive, and relentless. But she had one advantage it didn't: creativity. Humans could think beyond logic, beyond patterns, beyond the predictable, and she intended to use that advantage fully. She adjusted the artifact, sending pulses through the base to create new traps and barriers, confusing the intruders further. Vehicles were rerouted, energy pulses immobilized some attackers, and the chaos spread. The human soldiers, inspired by her actions, moved with renewed confidence, following her lead, trusting her instincts. The base had become a battlefield, alive with energy, responding to Ilara's commands. Every corner, every corridor, every system was under her control, and intruders were struggling to adapt. The advantage had shifted completely in her favor. Then came another twist. A small group of intruders attempted to flank the base, approaching through hidden tunnels. Ilara anticipated this, directing energy pulses to collapse parts of corridors, creating temporary barriers. The intruders were slowed, trapped, and disoriented. Her prediction had been correct. They had relied on brute force, not strategy. She allowed herself a brief moment of satisfaction. The human advantage was clear. Intelligence, strategy, and adaptability could overcome strength and numbers. And in this battle, she had all three in abundance. Corin, watching helplessly, muttered, I never thought humans could win like this." Ilara didn't respond. She continued to monitor the intruders, adjusting systems, creating traps, and predicting their every move. The artifact pulsed in harmony with her focus, amplifying her control over the base. Every action was deliberate, precise, and effective. The shadowy figure, still contained, pulsed with energy, clearly waiting for the right moment to strike. Ilara knew that the final confrontation was approaching, but she wasn't afraid. She had turned fear into advantage, chaos into strategy, and weakness into strength. She was ready for whatever came next. The human advantage had been established. Intelligence, courage, and adaptability had turned the tide. The intruders were disoriented, trapped, and weakened. And Ilara, standing amidst the hum of the alive base, knew that she had more than just technology on her side. She had strategy, creativity, and the ability to think faster than any opponent. The next phase of the battle was coming. The shadowy figure would test her further. The intruders would regroup, and the base would become a battlefield unlike anything humans had faced. But Ilara was ready, because the human advantage wasn't just strength. It was intelligence, courage, and a relentless will to survive. And she had all three. The stage was set for the final confrontation. And Ilara, calm, focused, and fearless, knew that she was ready to face whatever came next. The base was alive with energy, humming and vibrating, as it were aware that the ultimate test had arrived. Every light flickered in anticipation. Every panel pulsed with life, and the faint glow of the alien artifact cast shadows across the metallic walls. Ilara stood in the main control room, calm and focused. She knew the intruders were regrouping. She knew the shadowy figure, still contained in the energy cage, was planning its next move. And she knew the final confrontation was inevitable. Her eyes scanned the holographic map of the base. Red dots represented the intruders, moving with renewed coordination. The shadowy figure's energy pulsed violently, sending tremors through the base's systems. Ilara's pulse quickened, not with fear, but with anticipation. This was what she had prepared for, the moment her training and instincts had led to. Corin, still trapped, watched from his energy cage, jaw tight with envy and disbelief. You think you can handle all this?" he muttered. Ilara didn't answer. Words were useless here. Action was everything. Suddenly, the shadowy figure released a pulse of energy. The cage containing it shimmered and weakened, sparks flying. Alarms blared, red lights flashing. The figure stepped forward, tall and menacing, with glowing eyes that radiated intelligence and danger. It was unlike anything Alara had faced before. Its every movement seemed deliberate, calculated, and deadly. She activated the base's defense systems. Energy walls rose, laser grids snapped into place, and automated turrets powered up. Sparks flew as intruder vehicles collided with traps she had set earlier. Chaos erupted, and yet Alara remained calm, analyzing every reaction, predicting every move. The intruders' main force advanced, but they were slower, disoriented from the traps and energy pulses. Alara used their hesitation to her advantage, directing energy fields to channel them into containment zones. Sparks flew, vehicles jammed, and soldiers took cover, behind energy barriers. Every step the intruders took was anticipated, every move countered. Then came the shadowy figure. It moved faster than any intruder, stepping through the chaos with precision. Alara's mind raced, calculating probabilities, testing strategies, predicting its path. She activated a series of hidden energy conduits beneath the floor, designed to create a temporary cage of force around fast-moving intruders. The figure reacted instantly, leaping over the barriers, almost as if it anticipated the trap. Alara's pulse quickened. This opponent was intelligent, adaptive, and relentless. She had to be unpredictable, creative, and decisive. She scanned the base, looking for anything she could use. Her eyes landed on the alien artifact. Its pulses had grown stronger, almost responding to the heightened danger. She had one last advantage. The artifact could amplify her control over the base's systems, but using it fully was risky. One mistake could destroy the base, or worse, harm her allies. Alara made a split-second decision. She touched the artifact, feeling its energy resonate through her body. The base responded immediately, walls shifting, floors opening, energy pulses racing through conduits. The intruders were caught in a maze of shifting corridors, their formations broken, their movements slowed. The shadowy figure's progress was impeded, forced to react to a constantly changing environment. Corin's eyes widened. She's controlling the entire base, he muttered. Alara ignored him. Focus was all that mattered. She directed more energy pulses, creating traps specifically designed for the intruders' movements. Vehicles stalled, troops were immobilized by energy fields, and the chaos reached its peak. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and the base seemed alive, fighting alongside her. The shadowy figure, now cornered in the main hall, pulsed with energy. It moved with precision, trying to break through her defenses. Alara knew brute force wouldn't work. She had to outsmart it. She activated a decoy projection of the artifact, making it appear as if it had moved to a secondary location. The figure lunged toward the decoy, but the floor shifted beneath it, dropping into a containment chamber reinforced with alien energy. Sparks flew, alarms blaring. As the figure realized it had been tricked, Alara allowed herself a small smile. Strategy and intelligence had won again, but she knew this wasn't over. The intruders were still active, and their leader, though contained, was far from defeated. She activated a series of energy pulses throughout the base, using the artifact to manipulate every system simultaneously. Doors slammed shut behind intruders, floors opened to trap vehicles, and laser grids forced enemies into pre-designated zones. Every move was calculated, precise, and devastatingly effective. The intruders struggled, their coordination breaking down further. Soldiers watched in awe, inspired by Alara's skill. She had turned fear into advantage, chaos into order, and strength into intelligence. Every step she took demonstrated the human advantage, adaptability, creativity, and courage. Then came the final challenge. The shadowy figure's containment cage began to destabilize, energy crackling violently. Alara knew that if it broke free, it could undo all her efforts. She focused, touching the artifact again, amplified her control over the containment systems. Sparks flew as energy surged through the chamber, stabilizing the cage just in time. The figure glared at her, pulsing with energy, clearly analyzing every move she had made. Alara didn't flinch. She knew it was clever, relentless, but she had one thing it didn't: unpredictability. Humans could think beyond logic, beyond patterns. She could improvise, adapt, and act in ways the figure could not anticipate. She activated one final sequence. The base's system shifted, energy conduits pulsing in perfect synchronization with her commands. The intruder's remaining forces were funneled into containment zones, immobilized by energy fields. The shadowy figure pulsed with energy, but the containment chamber reinforced, trapping it completely. Sparks flew, alarms blared, and silence followed. Ilera stood in the control room, breathing steadily. The base had responded perfectly, every system under her control. The intruders were defeated, their forces immobilized, and the shadowy figure contained. She had used strategy, intelligence, and courage to turn the tide completely in her favor. Corin, still trapped, stared in disbelief. How? How did you do all of this? He muttered. Ilera smiled faintly. By thinking, by staying calm, by using what I had, not fearing what I didn't know. She walked to the control room, touching consoles lightly, ensuring every system was stable. Sparks faded, alarms silenced, and the base returned to a state of controlled calm. The intruders were neutralized, their leader contained and the base secure. Outside, the alien vehicles retreated, their formations broken, their confidence shattered. The humans had won, not through brute force, but through intelligence, strategy, and courage. Ilera paused by the observation deck, looking out at the rocky terrain of the planet. The sky glowed with strange colors, lightning flashing in the distance. The battle was over, but the lessons remained. Fear was a tool, but intelligence, adaptability, and bold action could turn it against any opponent. She turned back to the main hall. Corin remained trapped, humbled and awed by her skill. Soldiers and scientists began to move freely, inspired by the human advantage she had demonstrated. The base, once a place of training and uncertainty, now felt like a fortress, alive and responsive to its defenders. Ilera smiled slightly. The artifact pulsed softly, as if acknowledging her victory. She had survived the pin, outsmarted Corin, turned the intruder's strength against him, and contained the shadowy figure. She had proven that humans, when clever and courageous, could overcome even the most dangerous challenges. Her mind already raced with possibilities. This was only one battle, one test, one twist in a much larger story. The universe was vast, full of unknown dangers, but she had learned to rely on her wits, her courage, and her ability to adapt. She would face whatever came next with the same calm, intelligence, and determination that had carried her through this final showdown. The base was quiet now, the hum of energy returning to a steady rhythm. The artifact glowed softly, a reminder of the power she had harnessed. The intruders were defeated, but the lessons remained. Intelligence could overcome strength, courage could overcome fear, and the human spirit was more resilient than anyone had imagined. Ilera took a deep breath, walking to the main hall, calm and confident. The shadowy figure remained contained, a reminder that threats would always exist. But she was ready. She had survived the first pin, the bold moves, the unexpected twists, and the chaos of the human advantage. And now, she had proven herself in the ultimate showdown. The battle was over, but the story was far from finished. The universe was vast, full of mysteries, dangers, and challenges. And one human girl, fearless and clever, had shown that intelligence, courage, and bold action could change the outcome of even the most impossible battles. Ilera smiled faintly, knowing that whatever came next, she would face it head-on. Fear would never control her. Strength alone could never defeat her. And intelligence, courage, and strategy would always be TH.